Hi everyone, welcome to another G News update. Today, Christopher Luxon appeared in front of media and he made a number of fake statements that weren't factually correct, and he wasn't challenged by media. So this is why I think you find that National is still doing quite well in the polls, because New Zealand's media do not call him out when he makes statements that are factually incorrect. I think we could call it disinformation, because it's deliberate misinformation. Today, Christopher Luxon said to media that New Zealand spent the second highest spend in the world when it came to COVID spending. And here he is saying that we spent the second highest spend in the world on COVID spending, and he said that Treasury said this, but they didn't say this at all. So here he is, and I think you need to listen to him carefully, saying that New Zealand spent the second highest COVID spend in the world in front of media, and the fact that none of them actually challenged this outright lie.
As you've seen, the Treasury came out and said that the cost of living crisis for New Zealand has been worse by virtue of the economic actions and decisions that the previous administration took. We were the second biggest spending government on earth, and as a result that drove up inflation and made the cost of living longer and more painful for New Zealanders, and that's a fact.
So there it was. He did say that New Zealand was the second highest spender in COVID, and that Treasury had said this in its recent insights briefing, but that's not what was said. Here's a graph of the discretionary fiscal response to COVID-19 in selected economies, not the whole world, and this is based on a percent of a 2020 GDP. So it's the spend in a ratio to GDP, not the total spend. And this is just for advanced economies. If you look across, there's only 22 countries here. It's not the whole world. There's 195 other nations. So on many fronts, Luxon's misrepresenting the truth. Here's the emerging markets graph from the IMF. There's 27 countries here, and there's further information about low-income developing countries down here. And again, you've only got about 15 of them there. So if you add up all of those, you probably get about something like, about 60 countries out of 195. It's not the whole planet. It's not the most spending on earth. It's in relationship to GDP in 2020. So before you say, what's this got to do with Treasury? This is the source data graph that was used by the Treasury in their recent long-term insights briefing. And this data does not show that New Zealand was the second highest in the world. It's basically just showing that there was a selected bunch of countries that were some of the advanced economies, and that in a ratio of GDP to COVID spending, the result was New Zealand came in at the high end, very, very similar to that of Great Britain, pretty close to Australia and some of the other countries we compare ourselves to there. So Craig Rennie said that there were a lot of mistakes in the Treasury Insights briefing, but the point here is that Luxon's saying this contributed to inflation. And when it comes to inflation, let's have a look at that. Here's a graph by Craig Rennie, which also shows that the effects of inflation on New Zealand, New Zealand's the red line. We're very much the middle of the pack, and you can see we peaked around 7.3% back in July 2022, and then we came down. But look at all those other countries that are way higher than us. So on multiple factors, Christopher Luxon was misrepresenting the truth, not telling the truth to New Zealand voters, especially National Party voters who just believe everything that Christopher Luxon says.
We were the second biggest spending government on earth.
And why wouldn't they? If New Zealand media are prepared to allow misinformation to carry on from the Prime Minister, then of course New Zealand could go to hell in a handbasket, because we're not protected by media anymore. They don't represent the protections of the fourth estate. They're just like, yes, that's right. New Zealand had the second biggest, highest spend, bigger than the spend in Italy, bigger than the spend in China, bigger than the in total sum spend in the UK or any of those European countries. Even though Craig Rennie's got the facts, even though the facts are out there, these journalists, they just don't seem to actually give a shit about the truth. And they wonder why New Zealanders continue to say, well, we don't trust media. And you've got to ask yourself as well whether if you pay them peanuts, well, are we getting monkeys as journalists? You know, people that really don't even know what's going on, so they're not equipped to challenge. Anyway, in further news, Luxon in the same media conference today made out that he just didn't know who Tom Phillips was. The whole country's been watching the saga of the fugitive Tom Phillips with his children evading police now for, over a year, and everyone knows about it, but not Christopher Luxon, because Christopher Luxon is completely out of touch, and he was expecting to be asked questions about Iran and terrorist attacks in Australia. So he kind of objects to being asked about something that he doesn't know about. Here he is.
The Tom Phillips case, have you sought any advice about whether the SAS should get involved? This has been going on for a couple of years. Do you want to see...
Sorry, I'm just not... sorry, do you want to talk about the... I'm not going to talk... Sorry, can you give me more context?
Oh, Tom Phillips, the fugitive up in Marapeka.
So as you can see, he didn't know what was going on. He had no clue. He wasn't in touch. The Prime Minister doesn't even know about this fugitive. He went on to say that it was an operational matter for the police, so he didn't want to comment or have a view. He does have a view on certain topics, but not this one. He shared his personal view about Gaza. We're still not doing anything about that either. It also came up in this press conference. Chris Luxon was asked about pay equity and the fact that 5 unions have taken the government to court about the Bill of Rights and breaching it. These unions have got a hearing, and Christopher Luxon used the usual spin in front of the media, which was to say, look, well, it was unaffordable, it was not sustainable, it had got out of wonk, and we still have pay equity.
Education and health workers were at the High Court today saying the government's Equal Pay Act change breached the Bill of Rights. Why did the government not ask a select committee to consider the change?
Well, we discussed that at the time. It's around pay equity. It's not around equal pay. It's around pay equity. We have collective bargaining. We have equal pay. We have pay equity. It's just that we have, what we had was unworkable and frankly unaffordable. And so we still encourage people to make claims. We put money aside to deal with pay equity claims. But, obviously, we made a decision to very quickly implement one system. So we don't have 2 systems. We have one system. Everybody has clarity going forward from here.
So, he wanted it to be very clear that we still have it, but he didn't want it to be clear that so many people couldn't actually claim anymore. That, they could claim, but they wouldn't be successful because they were now ineligible. So it was important to Christopher Luxon to leave out the whole truth and tell a half-truth here. And, of course, we don't see Audrey Young giving him a brickbat for these lies. We see her giving him a bouquet for creating cringe. This morning I featured the fact that yesterday Audrey Young gave Christopher Luxon a bouquet because she said that his free enterprise overrid the embarrassment of trying to grandstand, get attention on himself, be the big hero. I got Taylor Swift to New Zealand. She's coming here for her engagement. I did it. Look at me, look at me. And he did all this in public on his Facebook page because it was grandstanding. And Audrey Young rewards this behaviour. So, again, this is the Stephen Joyce New Zealand Herald. Audrey Young is very aligned there with what she thinks. I think it always plays in favour of this kind of thing. Look at this bouquet there for Christopher Luxon, grandstanding and trying to get attention. But has it worked? Has it worked? Has it worked, Audrey? Is she coming or not? She's not. And this is the same kind of thing we see with the supermarket duopoly. It's not going to save us a cent, but Nicola Willis is performing, and performing is only possible if the media are prepared to actually sit back and go, wow, isn't that great? We're not going to challenge you. We're not going to ask you any hard questions about pay equity and how, people are not eligible for it now, that there's a high court case going on. And the flimsy excuse that Luxon uses here when he says, look, we didn't want there to be 2 systems, we wanted there to be one, to justify an ambush in something called Project 10. The government wouldn't tell us about it because Nicola Willis and the people that were behind this, like Brooke Van Velden, they didn't care about openness and transparency like they pretend to selectively at the Reserve Bank when it suits them politically. But here they were all secret. They didn't want two systems, so they're prepared to breach the Bill of Rights, apparently. So we'll see this get tested out in the High Court as those 5 unions tried to represent fairness and the rights of 180,000 low-paid women who have had their pay equity claims cancelled, and many of them are now ineligible to make a successful claim. And the argument is, well, they can still make a claim, they just won't actually reach the threshold that National had pulled up. The threshold made it a lot more unlikely, and a lot of people are now going to have to wait for 10 years before they can get a pay equity claim. There was also an opinion today written by Vernon Small in the Post, which I think was worth mentioning. He made a couple of points about how this government's reforms are Orwellian in the way in which they defy logic, really, a lot of the time. So he mentioned some points like how we're trading away our health and safety, because it's convenient for us now, despite the lessons learned from Pike River. We'll just chuck all that out because the ACT Party and Van Velden, have a feeling in their little toe that it would be easier, for everybody if we just didn't worry about health and safety. Then we've actually also seen smoking reforms, when all the evidence is ignored. We go about reducing smoking in New Zealand to make New Zealand smoke-free, and then suddenly we repeal legislation that will actually take us those last steps because, tobacco industries, lobbying, New Zealand First, those kind of characters, they've got some other plan, where we can do something else. We just slow everything down. And our media doesn't make it very clear that this is going on, apart from, say, Guy Espiner at Radio New Zealand, who does a great job. But, you sort of get this thing where Vernon Small is just saying this defies logic, that we slow down just when we're getting close to the finish, and we keep people, getting lung cancer. He also mentioned a couple of other points that are crazy, like the free market solution that we're all waiting on from Nicola Willis and the supermarket duopoly, who are all kind of chummy friends together, and how that's pretty unlikely. And it's also the case that when it comes to water done well, that we've ended up with something called a bugger's muddle. A bugger's muddle is like we're going to have 40 water entities now when they were thinking of having 15. And how do we get there? Well, there was a lot of work done by Atlas Network think tank, the Taxpayers Union, who had a lot of money to spend going around rural communities and scaring people about a Maori takeover of New Zealand and playing on racist prejudice because, everyone says, oh, I'm not a racist, but... And playing on that and, people saying, well, they've gone too far now. So the communications there with Three Waters may have let everybody down, but the solution was great because we would have had 10 or so entities there, and we would have got those lower bills, now. But now you're going to have to pay massive bills. There's 40 entities, not 15. There's a bugger's muddle, and the Simon Watts is on the run. He's running from media. He doesn't want to answer questions about this, and he's all very brave in the House of Parliament. But wow, now you're going to pay the bill, aren't you? You're going to pay the bill for listening to the Taxpayers Union, and we just move on. We don't want to talk about it. So there were a number of these kind of issues that Vernon Small mentioned today, and I think he did a good job there of kind of pointing out that this is all very Orwellian, that, we've got ourselves a government that's making these terrible reforms that really don't make a lot of sense. Pay equity is that big one. We've mentioned health and safety. We're going to drive up more accidents in the workplace just to satisfy ACT Party ideology. So here we are, we're sitting down here where there's a ferry coming in, and we've got a marina behind me. So this is the kind of thing you might see when we use fast tracking in the future. This marina behind me, it went in despite all the protests from the local community here on Waiheke Island, who were not happy. Iwi were not happy. We were all unhappy. There were all sorts of movements and protests and legal action to try and prevent the imposition of this marina here. This marina came after they failed to put it over at Matiatia, where the Fuller's Ferry comes in. And they said anywhere but Matiatia, so they came here. And now we've got this. At the time, a whole bunch of penguins were disturbed. The chicks were all disturbed, and there was quite a big hoo-ha. It did actually make the news briefly, but with fast-tracking, none of that will happen. There will be no democracy. So fast-tracking a supermarket, fast-tracking everything, is a way to corporate take over local voice, to stamp out local voice, to ignore communities, to change the way of life in a community. If you like living in your town and you like some things about, Gulf Islands and how, there's lots of trees and, it's not kind of like all the other suburbs, well, get out of the way, because the national government, who 32% of us vote for, they're going to just fast track over the top of you. You don't count. Who cares what you think? This is a dictatorship. This is Orwellian. And that's basically all I had to say today. Thank you very much for your support of our T-shirts. Here's this T-shirt that Vicky's selling today. This is the LuxCon T-shirt, the non-binary T-shirt. This comes from some rhetoric over in the UK about Keir Starmer. But we've nicked it here because it really applies to Christopher Luxon, who lacks a spine when it comes to the coalition. It's a coalition of chaos. They speak with multiple voices. Davey Boy leads, Winston leads, and Luxon is just absent. He's not able to stand up to them, and we get him saying, oh, everything's complicated, which is his way of saying, I'm no leader. You voted for me, but I'm not delivering on economic growth, or inflation's going back up now. And I'll just lie about the COVID spend and what Treasury is saying. Nobody will challenge me, so I'll get away with it. And I guess that's the kind of thing we're seeing. So basically, that's basically all I have to say. This is where the Sealink car ferry comes in. Some people on the island think their profit margins are being squeezed when they try and distribute food, because Sealink is like one of those near monopolies when it comes to bringing a car over, pretty close to the only way in which you can bring freight to the island. So despite the fact that we've got 4 competing companies now doing passenger ferries, when it comes to freight, the problem with monopolies is that they push up the price of everything. So New Zealanders in Auckland will pay less for certain basics than you will if you live on an island where there's only one car ferry, and they don't do deals. As far as I know, they don't do deals with local distributors, or it's very, very hard to get that to happen. So that's all from me today. I hope you have a wonderful time today. Also say yes to Maori Wards. Here's our Yes to Maori Wards T-shirt. Don't forget to vote in that referendum for Maori Wards, so that tangata whenua have a voice at the table in their councils before this corporate takeover from the Atlas Network and the national government, along with ACT, just stomp it all out. And we have this very awful corporate, sterile, American-style, very racist society enhanced for years and years. If we don't have Maori Wards, we don't have Maori voice. We need those voices around the table. That's all from me. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you all again soon.
Welcome to G News, the good news.
Yeah, right.